I am Amina, 33 years old, and known as the investment strategist who consistently beats market projections by at least 8%. That reputation meant nothing to Marcus Reynolds, our arrogant CFO, who laughed at my carefully researched proposal in front of the entire board. What he never expected was how his dismissive chuckle would become the catalyst for the biggest power move of my career. Before I tell you how I ended up controlling the $350 million portfolio he lost, drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from. Hit that like button and subscribe to join me on this journey of sweet professional redemption. The financial world was not where I initially planned to make my mark. Growing up in a middle-class neighborhood in Chicago, I was the daughter of a high school math teacher and a small business owner. Numbers always made sense to me in a way people sometimes did not. While other kids had posters of celebrities on their walls, I had charts tracking my small investment portfolio started with birthday money and summer job earnings. My path to finance was paved with academic excellence. I graduated summa cum laude from Northwestern University with a double major in economics and computer science, then earned my MBA from Columbia Business School specializing in investment strategy. Those credentials opened doors, but it was my analytical mind and ability to spot patterns others missed that truly set me apart. By 33, I had built a reputation as something of a financial savant. My specialty became finding undervalued assets and optimizing investment strategies for maximum returns. I could look at a portfolio that appeared to be performing adequately and identify exactly how to restructure it to squeeze out that additional 8% return. It was not magic or luck. It was meticulous research, advanced algorithmic analysis, and an instinctive understanding of market psychology that many of my colleagues lacked. I joined Westbrook Capital 5 years ago, drawn by their prestigious reputation and impressive client roster. The firm managed over $15 billion in assets for high net worth individuals, family offices, and institutional investors. It was exactly where I wanted to be, or so I thought. The Westbrook offices occupied the 35th floor of a gleaming skyscraper in downtown Manhattan. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic views of the city, while the interior featured marble floors, original artwork, and meeting rooms named after famous economists. Everything about the space was designed to convey success, stability, and exclusivity to clients. Behind the impressive facade, however, the firm's culture was deeply entrenched in old-school thinking and gender biases that became increasingly apparent over time. Marcus Reynolds was the embodiment of everything problematic about finance industry culture. As Chief Financial Officer, he had been with Westbrook for nearly 20 years, rising through the ranks during a time when diversity was a foreign concept in the boardroom. At 58, Marcus was tall, silver-haired, and perpetually dressed in bespoke suits that cost more than most people's monthly rent. He had the confidence that comes from decades of being the smartest person in most rooms, combined with the arrogance of someone who had rarely been challenged. Jessica Parker became my closest ally at Westbrook within my first month. 2 years my senior and working as a senior portfolio manager, she had already learned to navigate the firm's complicated power dynamics. With her razor-sharp wit and strategic mind, Jessica recognized my potential immediately and took me under her wing. "You have got to be twice as good to get half the credit around here," she warned me during one of our lunch meetings. "But I have seen your models. You are easily 3 times as good, so you will be fine." Her laugh could not quite mask the truth behind her words. Robert Chen served as one of the senior partners at Westbrook. Unlike Marcus, Robert recognized my talent and would occasionally champion my ideas, but only when it was politically convenient for him. He was the kind of ally who would compliment my work in private while remaining silent when Marcus dismissed me in meetings. "You are going places, Amina," he would say, with what seemed like genuine admiration. "Just be patient. Marcus will come around eventually." But his unwillingness to challenge the status quo made his encouragement ring hollow over time. The $350 million portfolio that would eventually become the centerpiece of my story belonged to Warren Kensington, a tech industry pioneer who had sold his cybersecurity company for billions 5 years earlier. His portfolio was one of Westbrook's crown jewels, managed personally by Marcus, who considered it his territory. The portfolio was relatively conservative by design, focusing on blue-chip stocks, municipal bonds, and select private equity investments. Under Marcus's management, it consistently returned about 4% annually, which he considered a triumph of steady, responsible stewardship. What Marcus failed to recognize, or perhaps chose to ignore, was that the financial landscape had evolved. New analytical tools, alternative investments, and strategic allocation approaches could generate significantly higher returns without substantially increasing risk. This was precisely my area of expertise. During my years at Westbrook, I consistently outperformed my colleagues managing smaller portfolios that regularly exceeded projections. My clients were among the most satisfied at the firm, yet I remained undervalued and underpromoted. While male colleagues with half my performance record were given larger portfolios and invited to exclusive client events, I struggled to have my recommendations taken seriously. The glass ceiling at Westbrook was not just thick, it was reinforced with the concrete of tradition and the steel of entrenched thinking. I watched as less qualified men were promoted above me, given larger portfolios to manage, and invited into the inner circle of decision-making. My frustration grew with each passing quarter, as did my determination to prove my worth. What none of them realized was that my patience had limits. And Marcus Reynolds was about to discover just how costly it could be to underestimate someone like me. The quarterly strategy meeting was scheduled for a Thursday morning in early April. These meetings were critical to Westbrook's operation, bringing together the senior leadership to review performance-adjust strategies and allocate resources across portfolios. For associates like me, they represented rare opportunities to gain visibility with decision-makers. I had spent the 3 weeks leading up to this meeting preparing what I believed was an irrefutable case for reshaping the Kensington portfolio. Night after night, I remained at my desk long after most colleagues had left, analyzing market trends, running simulations, and refining my models. My apartment became a secondary office with financial reports covering every surface and my computer running complex scenarios throughout the night. The data was compelling. By adjusting the allocation model, incorporating emerging market ETFs, strategically selected tech growth stocks, and a carefully balanced alternative investment component, I could increase returns by at least 8% without significantly altering the risk profile. The mathematics were sound. The historical backtesting confirmed my projections. I had even built in stress tests to account for various market disruptions. Jessica reviewed my presentation the day before and whistled low. "This is bulletproof, Amina," she said, flipping through my meticulously prepared slides. "They would be idiots not to implement this immediately." "But will Marcus even give it fair consideration?" I asked, unable to keep the concern from my voice. Jessica's hesitation told me everything. "Just present the facts. The numbers speak for themselves." That Wednesday night, I barely slept. I rehearsed my presentation, repeatedly anticipating questions and preparing responses. This was my chance to finally break through, to demonstrate my value so convincingly that even Marcus could not dismiss it. By morning, I was exhausted but ready, dressed in my most professional navy blue suit, hair neatly styled and confidence carefully constructed. The main conference room at Westbrook exuded power. The massive mahogany table dominated the space, surrounded by ergonomic leather chairs. On the wall hung a single, massive abstract painting in blues and golds that was rumored to have cost more than $200,000. The views of Manhattan through the windows served as a constant reminder of the wealth and influence concentrated in this room. By 8:45, the room had filled with Westbrook's power players. Marcus sat at the head of the table, flanked by Robert and other senior partners. Jessica gave me an encouraging nod from across the table as I took my seat, clutching my portfolio analysis in a leather folio. The meeting progressed through its standard agenda. Quarterly results were reviewed, market conditions discussed, and several portfolio adjustments approved with minimal debate. When my turn came to present just before the morning break, I felt all eyes turn to me. I distributed copies of my analysis and launched into my presentation with practiced precision. For 12 minutes, I outlined my strategy for the Kensington portfolio, supporting each point with data comparative analyses and projected outcomes. As I spoke, I noted the expressions around the table shifting from polite attention to genuine interest. Several of the partners were leaning forward, examining my numbers with evident intrigue. In conclusion, I said, coming to the culmination of my presentation, this reallocation strategy will increase the Kensington portfolio returns by a minimum of 8% annually, while maintaining a risk profile consistent with client preferences. The approach is both innovative and conservative, leveraging emerging opportunities within established parameters. A moment of silence followed as the room absorbed my proposal. Robert nodded appreciatively. Two other partners exchanged impressed glances. And then, Marcus laughed. It was not a chuckle of amusement or appreciation. It was the kind of laugh that dismisses without consideration, that belittles without engagement. It was the laugh of a man who had already decided not to take me seriously before I had spoken a single word. "That is cute, Amina," he said, leaning back in his chair with a patronizing smile. 8% above current returns while maintaining the risk profile. Perhaps in some theoretical model, but this is the real world. We do not make promises we cannot keep to clients like Warren Kensington. Heat rose to my cheeks, but I maintained my professional composure. The models are based on real-world data, Marcus. I have run backtests through 3 market downturns to validate. His smile never faltered. Warren Kensington did not become a billionaire by chasing fantasy returns. He values stability and proven approaches. Perhaps you should try elsewhere with these projections. Maybe some of our smaller, more risk-tolerant clients might be interested. And just like that, my proposal was shelved. No discussion of the specifics. No questions about my methodology. No consideration of the opportunity. Just dismissed with a laugh and a wave of Marcus's hand as he moved on to the next agenda item. The remainder of the meeting passed in a blur. I sat in my chair, maintaining a neutral expression while internally processing what had just happened. Around the table, no one spoke up. No one challenged Marcus or suggested my proposal deserved further review. The complicity of silence spoke volumes. As we filed out for the mid-morning coffee break, Jessica squeezed my arm gently. "That was brilliantly presented," she whispered. "For what it is worth, I think your strategy is sound." Her support meant something, but it could not erase the public humiliation I had just experienced. In the hallway, Robert approached, looking genuinely apologetic. "Your analysis was impressive, Amina," he said quietly. "The numbers definitely support your projections." "Then why did no one say anything?" I asked, unable to keep the edge from my voice. Robert glanced around to ensure no one was within earshot. "You know how Marcus is with the Kensington account. He considers it his personal territory. And between us, Marcus and Warren go way back. College roommates, I think. So facts and performance do not matter as long as you have the right connections." I did not say that, Robert replied, discomfort evident in his expression. "Just give it time. Maybe present the strategy for a different portfolio next quarter." He patted my shoulder awkwardly before walking away, leaving me alone with my thoughts and my beautifully crafted, thoroughly rejected proposal. The remainder of the day passed in a fog of professional disappointment. I went through the motions, attended my meetings, responded to emails. But my mind kept returning to that moment. The laugh, the dismissal, the silence from those who should have recognized the value of my work. The drive home that evening was a symphony of replayed humiliation. In the privacy of my car, I finally allowed the emotions to surface. Anger came first, hot and clarifying. Then doubt crept in. Was there a flaw in my analysis that I had missed? Was I overestimating my abilities? Had I misread the firm's culture so completely? By the time I reached my apartment, exhaustion had set in. I dropped my briefcase by the door, kicked off my heels, and collapsed onto my couch. The city lights twinkled outside my window. Millions of people going about their lives, unaware that somewhere in this vast metropolis, a woman's career aspirations had just hit a seemingly immovable obstacle. What I did not realize then was that obstacles can become opportunities when you change your perspective. And Marcus's dismissive laugh would soon become the catalyst for the biggest professional leap of my life. Friday passed in a haze of routine work and avoided eye contact. I maintained my professional demeanor, but inside, I was still processing the previous day's humiliation. When the weekend finally arrived, I found myself at a crossroads. My apartment, usually a sanctuary, now felt like a reflection of my professional stagnation. Framed diplomas and certificates of achievement lined one wall, testament to academic excellence that apparently counted for little in the face of institutional bias. On my dining table sat a stack of financial journals and the printed version of my rejected proposal. I spent Saturday morning in introspection, reviewing my career trajectory and questioning my choices. By afternoon, introspection had given way to determination. I pulled out my laptop and began a systematic review of my analysis. If there was a flaw, I would find it. If my projections were sound, I would find a way to prove it. Hours melted away as I deconstructed and rebuilt my models, scrutinizing every assumption and calculation. Sunday morning found me still at it, surrounded by empty coffee cups and printouts covered in notations. The conclusion remained inescapable. My analysis was solid. The 8% projection was not only achievable but potentially conservative. With this validation came clarity. The problem was not my work, it was the environment in which I was attempting to have it recognized. Something had to change, but what? By Sunday afternoon, I knew I needed perspective beyond my own thoughts. I called the one person who had always given me straight answers without sugarcoating the reality of the finance industry, Professor Eleanor Grant. Eleanor had been my mentor since my MBA days, a trailblazer who had broken through glass ceilings in finance decades before the term was commonplace. Now semi-retired, but serving on several corporate boards, she remained my most trusted advisor. "They laughed at your 8% projection," she asked after I recounted the meeting. I could picture her shaking her head, silver hair framing a face that had seen too much of this story before, and no one spoke up. Not a single person. I confirmed the frustration evident in my voice. "Then why are you still there, Amina?" The question was simple but hit me like a revelation. Westbrook is prestigious, the clients, the resources. And what good are those resources if you cannot use them? What value is that prestige if it comes with disrespect? She was right, of course. I had been so focused on climbing the ladder at Westbrook that I had failed to consider whether it was leaning against the right wall. "The finance world is changing," Amina Eleanor continued. "Firms that ignore talent because it does not come in the package they expect are losing ground. Have you considered looking elsewhere?" I had not seriously. Despite the frustrations, I had been committed to making it work at Westbrook. But now, with Eleanor's perspective, I began to see other possibilities. Where would I even start? There is a networking event next weekend at the Pierre, the Financial Innovation Forum. Damon Williams from Pinnacle Investments will be speaking on the evolution of portfolio management. Might be worth attending. Damon Williams. The name was familiar from industry publications and conferences. As head of Pinnacle Investments, he had a reputation for progressive thinking and embracing technological advances in financial analysis, precisely the approaches that Westbrook and specifically Marcus tended to resist. "I will think about it," I promised, though in truth, my mind was already racing ahead. After our call, I spent the evening researching Pinnacle Investments. The firm was smaller than Westbrook but growing rapidly. Their approach to portfolio management aligned closely with my own philosophy. Most importantly, they seemed to value innovation and results over tradition and connections. By Monday morning, I had made my decision. I would attend the Financial Innovation Forum, not just as a networking opportunity, but as the first step toward a potential career change. During the week, I updated my resume, compiled performance data from the portfolios I managed, and prepared a condensed version of my strategy proposal, stripped of any Westbrook-specific information. Saturday arrived with a mixture of nervousness and anticipation. The Pierre Hotel's ballroom had been transformed for the event, with circular tables surrounding a central stage. Approximately 200 finance professionals filled the space, creating a low hum of conversation that spoke of connections being made and ideas being exchanged. I navigated the room, strategically engaging in conversations that might lead me toward Damon Williams. The presentation portion began, and I took a seat at a table near the front, notebook ready. Damon proved to be an engaging speaker, articulate and forward-thinking in his approach to market analysis. His presentation on adaptive portfolio management resonated deeply with my own philosophy. When the Q&A session began, I seized my opportunity. In your experience, I asked, when called upon, what is the appropriate balance between traditional stability and innovative allocation strategies when managing significant portfolios for established clients? The question was professional, but pointed, drawing on the very issue that had led to my dismissal at Westbrook. Damon considered it thoughtfully before providing a nuanced response that acknowledged both the value of proven approaches and the necessity of evolution in investment strategy. After the presentations concluded and the networking resumed, I positioned myself near the refreshment table, knowing it was a natural gathering point. Within 15 minutes, as I had hoped, Damon approached for a coffee. Interesting question earlier, he said as he reached for a cup. It gets at the heart of what many firms are struggling with right now. Thank you. It is something I think about often in my current role, I replied, introducing myself. Amina Wallace, investment strategist at Westbrook Capital. Recognition flashed in his eyes. Westbrook, Marcus Reynolds' domain. How is the old guard holding up these days? The question offered a perfect opening. Steady as always. 4% returns are celebrated as victories. Damon raised an eyebrow. 4% is considered success in this market. When tradition outweighs innovation, 4% becomes the comfortable target, I said, carefully testing the waters. What followed was a 20-minute discussion on market trends, analytical approaches, and the changing landscape of investment strategy. I shared some of my perspectives without mentioning my rejected proposal, specifically, and found Damon surprisingly aligned with my thinking. We should continue this conversation, he said, finally checking his watch. I have another commitment, but I would be interested in hearing more about your approach to portfolio optimization. We exchanged contact information, and as he handed me his business card, he added, perhaps coffee next week. I am always looking for fresh perspectives. As I left the Pierre that evening, the weight that had settled on my shoulders after the strategy meeting felt lighter. A door that I had not even known existed was now potentially opening before me. The path forward was not yet clear, but for the first time since Marcus's dismissive laugh, I felt a renewed sense of possibility. That night, I added Damon Williams to my professional contacts and sent a brief professional email thanking him for the conversation and expressing interest in continuing our discussion. His response came surprisingly quickly, suggesting coffee the following Wednesday. The pieces were beginning to fall into place, though I could not yet see the full picture they would create. All I knew was that Marcus Reynolds' laugh had set something in motion that neither of us could have anticipated. Wednesday arrived with a mix of anticipation and strategic calculation. I had chosen my outfit carefully professional, but contemporary, a subtle contrast to Westbrook's conservative dress code. The coffee shop Damon had suggested was an upscale establishment in Tribeca, frequented by finance professionals, but removed from the immediate Wall Street crowd, minimizing the chance of running into Westbrook colleagues. I arrived 15 minutes early to collect my thoughts and review the key points I wanted to convey. Damon arrived precisely on time, dressed in a well-tailored suit that spoke of success without ostentation. Amina, good to see you again. He greeted me with a warm handshake. I have been looking forward to continuing our conversation. After ordering, we settled into a quiet corner table. The initial exchanges covered industry news and general market trends, a professional dance that established shared knowledge and perspective. Then Damon steered the conversation in a more specific direction. I was impressed by your insights at the forum, he said, his tone shifting from casual to evaluative. Your question suggested someone who understands both traditional approaches and innovative strategies. That is surprisingly rare in our field. I believe in respecting proven methods while embracing new possibilities, I replied. The market evolves and our strategies should evolve with it. A philosophy not universally embraced at Westbrook if rumors are to be believed. The opening was perfect, but I proceeded cautiously. Different firms have different cultures. Westbrook has been successful with its approach. And yet I sense you might be capable of more than that environment allows. His perception was uncomfortably accurate. For a moment, I considered the professional etiquette of discussing potential dissatisfaction with a current employer. But this meeting represented an opportunity I could not squander with excessive caution. I recently presented a portfolio reallocation strategy that I believe could significantly increase returns while maintaining an acceptable risk profile, I said carefully. It was not embraced with the enthusiasm I had hoped for. May I ask what kind of returns you projected? 8% above current performance. Damon's eyebrows rose slightly. That is substantial. And the risk assessment? Comparable to current levels. The strategy redistributes allocation rather than simply increasing exposure to volatile sectors. And Westbrook was not interested. The proposal was not given serious consideration. Understanding passed between us without the need for further elaboration on Westbrook's internal politics. Would you be comfortable sharing your approach in general terms, not client-specific details, of course? For the next 30 minutes, I outlined my investment philosophy and strategic approach using hypothetical examples that mirrored but did not explicitly reference the Kensington portfolio. Damon listened attentively, asking insightful questions that demonstrated genuine understanding of the methodologies I described. This is remarkably aligned with directions we have been exploring at Pinnacle, he said when I finished. We have been developing more adaptive approaches to portfolio management, particularly for larger accounts. The conversation shifted to Pinnacle's culture and structure. Damon described a more collaborative environment where analysis and results were valued above tenure and tradition. He explained their team-based approach to major portfolios, contrasting with Westbrook's more territorial management style. We currently manage a $300 million portfolio for a technology sector client. Damon mentioned the number, immediately catching my attention. The current returns are acceptable, but I have been considering a restructuring along lines very similar to what you have described. The parallels to the Kensington situation were striking, and I wondered if this was coincidence or if Damon was more aware of Westbrook's client relationships than he let on. I would be interested in your thoughts on how you would approach such a portfolio, he continued. Perhaps we could schedule a more formal discussion at our offices. The invitation was clear, though not yet explicit. This was no longer a casual professional conversation, but the precursor to something more significant. I would be interested in continuing this discussion in a more formal setting, I agreed. As we prepared to leave, Damon's next words confirmed what I had begun to suspect. Amina, let me be direct. Pinnacle is growing, and we are always looking for exceptional talent. Your approach to investment strategy is exactly the kind of thinking we value. Would you be open to discussing a position with us? The moment had a clarity that I had not experienced in years at Westbrook. Here was recognition of my abilities, interest in my ideas, and an opportunity to apply them in an environment that might actually value the results. I would be very interested in that conversation, I replied, maintaining professional composure despite the excitement building inside me. 2 days later, I found myself in Pinnacle's offices, a more modern space than Westbrook's traditional setting. The meeting with Damon and his executive team lasted 3 hours, during which I presented a detailed overview of my investment philosophy and strategic approach. The discussion was substantive, focused on methodologies and outcomes, rather than conformity to established patterns. By meeting's end, the opportunity had crystallized into something concrete, a senior portfolio strategist position with responsibility for several major accounts, including the technology sector portfolio Damon had mentioned, which I now learned was valued at $360 million. The compensation package reflected the value they placed on my expertise, with a base salary 20% higher than my current position at Westbrook plus performance-based incentives that could substantially increase the total. More importantly, the role came with the autonomy to implement the very strategies that Marcus had dismissed with a laugh. I took the weekend to consider the offer, though in truth, my decision was already made. Monday morning, I accepted the position with Pinnacle and prepared my resignation letter for Westbrook. Delivering my resignation to my direct supervisor was straightforward. She expressed genuine regret but understood the opportunity was significant. The real moment of reckoning came when Marcus requested to see me in his office later that afternoon. "So you are leaving us for Pinnacle," he said without preamble as I took the seat across from his imposing desk. His tone suggested he found the decision puzzling rather than concerning. "Yes, they have offered me an opportunity that aligns well with my professional goals." Damon Williams has always had a flair for the dramatic, Marcus said, with a dismissive wave. "But you should know that his operation lacks the stability and prestige of Westbrook. Their client relationships are neither as established nor as secure as ours. I appreciate your perspective, but I have made my decision." A hint of condescension crept into his smile. "You will be back, Amina. When reality hits and those ambitious projections fail to materialize, Westbrook might consider a position for you, though perhaps not at your current level." His certainty that I would fail and his implication that I would need to crawl back at a reduced position crystallized exactly why I needed to leave. I simply nodded, maintaining professionalism in the face of his arrogance. "I wish you and Westbrook continued success," I said, rising to leave. As news of my departure spread through the office, reactions varied. Several colleagues expressed genuine disappointment, having valued our collaboration. Jessica was both supportive and a little envious. "You are making the right move," she told me over lunch, "though I will miss having an ally in this boys' club." "Maybe you should consider your options too," I suggested. She smiled mysteriously. "Maybe I already am." Robert approached me on my second-to-last day, his expression conflicted. "I hear Pinnacle is giving you significant portfolio responsibility right away." "Yes, they are. I want you to know I thought your strategy proposal was excellent. The 8% projection was aggressive but well supported by your analysis." "Thank you, Robert. I appreciate that now, though. It might have been more helpful in the meeting." He had the grace to look embarrassed. Office politics can be complicated. They can also be unnecessary obstacles to performance and growth, I replied. Sometimes a fresh perspective requires a fresh environment. My 2 weeks' notice passed quickly, with the process of transitioning my responsibilities and saying goodbyes filling the days. On my final Friday at Westbrook, I cleared my desk, turned in my security badge, and walked out of the building with a sense of closure and new beginning combined. The following Monday, I began my new chapter at Pinnacle Investments, stepping into a role that would soon connect back to Westbrook and Marcus Reynolds in ways none of us could have anticipated. My first day at Pinnacle began with a comprehensive orientation. The firm's offices, occupying the 28th floor of a more contemporary building in Midtown, reflected their philosophy: open collaborative spaces, mixed with private areas for focused work, glass-walled conference rooms, and technology integrated throughout. It was a physical manifestation of the progressive approach Damon had described. The culture shock was immediate and refreshing. Where Westbrook operated on hierarchy and tradition, Pinnacle functioned through teams and results. My first week involved meetings with various departments, building relationships with the analysts who would support my strategies, and familiarizing myself with the firm's systems and processes. Damon introduced me to the team. I would be leading a diverse group of 6 financial analysts, ranging from recent graduates to seasoned professionals. Unlike at Westbrook, where teams were often assembled based on tenure and connections, this group had been selected for complementary skills and perspectives. "We have structured this team to support the implementation of your strategic approach," Damon explained. "They are all aware of your background and eager to work with your methodologies." The technology sector portfolio, valued at $365 million, became my primary focus. It belonged to Maxwell Turner, a software entrepreneur who had sold his company to a tech giant 5 years earlier. The parallels to Warren Kensington's situation were striking, though I had no reason to believe the similarities were anything but coincidence at this point. My first month at Pinnacle involved deep analysis of the Turner portfolio, identifying opportunities for optimization, and developing a comprehensive reallocation strategy. I worked closely with my team, encouraging their input while guiding the overall direction. The collaborative atmosphere allowed for refinement of ideas that would have been impossible in Westbrook's more rigid environment. By the end of my first month, I presented my proposed strategy to Damon and the executive team. The approach mirrored the one I had developed for the Kensington portfolio, adjusted for the specific characteristics and goals of the Turner account. Once again, I projected an 8% increase in returns with comparable risk. This time, the response could not have been more different. Questions were thoughtful and focused on implementation rather than doubt. Suggestions were offered to strengthen specific elements rather than dismiss the overall approach. By meeting's end, I had full approval to proceed with implementation. "This is exactly why we brought you on board," Amina Damon said afterward. "Your approach is innovative but grounded in sound principles. I have complete confidence in your ability to deliver these results." The contrast with Marcus's dismissive laugh could not have been starker. Over the next 2 months, I implemented my strategy in phases, carefully monitoring performance and making tactical adjustments as needed. The early results were promising, with the first quarter showing a 4.5% improvement, putting us on track to meet or exceed the 8% annual projection. My success with the Turner portfolio led Damon to expand my responsibilities to include several other major accounts. My team grew to 10 analysts, and I found myself in the position of mentor to several promising young professionals, particularly women and minorities, who saw in me an example of what was possible in an industry still dominated by men like Marcus. It was during this period of growing success that I first heard the news that would eventually bring my story full circle. During a regular leadership meeting, Damon mentioned that Warren Kensington had reached out to Pinnacle. Warren Kensington. From Westbrook, I asked, unable to hide my surprise. The very same, Damon confirmed. Apparently, he has been less than impressed with the performance of his portfolio over the past year. He has requested a meeting to discuss potentially moving a portion of his assets to Pinnacle. The irony was almost too perfect. The very portfolio that Marcus had refused to let me optimize was now potentially coming into my orbit through an entirely different channel. "What size portfolio are we talking about?" another executive asked. "Currently valued at approximately $350 million, Damon replied, and I had to work to maintain a neutral expression. "Warren is considering moving the entire portfolio if he likes what he hears from us." "When is the meeting scheduled?" I asked, keeping my tone professional, despite the excitement building inside me. "Next Thursday. And Amina, I would like you to be part of the presentation team, given your success with the Turner portfolio." The universe, it seemed, had a sense of poetic justice. The week leading up to the Kensington meeting was a whirlwind of preparation. I worked with the team to develop a presentation that would showcase Pinnacle's approach and specifically highlight the results we had achieved with similar portfolios. While I did not explicitly reference my history with the Kensington account at Westbrook, I drew on everything I knew about the portfolio's structure and Warren's investment preferences. The day before the meeting, Damon called me into his office for a private conversation. "There is something you should know about tomorrow's meeting," he said, once we were seated. "Warren has requested that his current management team from Westbrook be present via video conference during our presentation." My heart skipped a beat. "You mean?" "Yes, Marcus Reynolds will be on the call." The news sent a mixture of anxiety and vindication coursing through me. Marcus would witness me presenting the very strategy he had laughed at, but now with the backing of a firm that recognized its value. "Is that going to be a problem for you?" Damon asked, studying my reaction. I considered the question carefully. "No, not at all. In fact, I think it might add an interesting dimension to the discussion." Damon smiled knowingly. I thought you might feel that way. Warren did not specify why he wanted both teams present simultaneously, but I suspect he is looking for a direct comparison of approaches. Then we will give him exactly that. That night, I rehearsed my portion of the presentation repeatedly, ensuring that every point was clear, every projection well supported, and every recommendation specific to Warren's needs. This was no longer about proving Marcus wrong, though that would be a satisfying side effect. It was about demonstrating to a potential client that Pinnacle, and specifically my team, could deliver the results that Westbrook had failed to achieve. The stage was set for a confrontation that would resolve the tension that had been building since that fateful quarterly strategy meeting. What none of us realized was just how dramatically events would unfold the following day. Thursday morning arrived with the crisp clarity of significance. I dressed with particular care in a tailored charcoal suit that projected confidence and professionalism. The Pinnacle conference room had been prepared for the video meeting with our presentation materials ready and the technical connections tested. Warren Kensington would be joining from his office in Seattle, while the Westbrook team would connect from their Manhattan headquarters. Our Pinnacle team, consisting of Damon, myself, and 2 senior analysts, gathered 30 minutes before the scheduled start to review our approach, one final time. Remember, Damon advised, this is not just about technical strategy. Warren is looking for a team he can trust with a significant portion of his wealth. Connection is as important as computation. At precisely 10 o'clock, the connections were established, and 3 video feeds appeared on the large screen at the end of our conference room. Warren Kensington appeared in the center, a distinguished man in his 60s, with penetrating eyes that suggested he missed nothing. To his right was the Westbrook feed, showing Marcus Robert and 2 other executives seated in their mahogany-appointed conference room. The contrast with our more contemporary setting was immediately apparent. "Good morning, everyone," Warren began, his voice carrying the quiet authority of someone accustomed to being listened to. "Thank you all for accommodating this somewhat unusual arrangement. I believe in efficiency, and having both teams present simultaneously will allow me to make direct comparisons without the filter of memory or the need for follow-up questions." Introductions followed, and I noted Marcus's momentary flash of surprise when Damon introduced me as Pinnacle's senior portfolio strategist. Robert's expression was more complex, a mixture of discomfort and what might have been respect. Warren explained that he had been reviewing his investment strategy across all his holdings and was considering consolidating his assets with the firm that demonstrated the most compelling approach to growth while maintaining appropriate security. "Marcus, since you have managed my portfolio for the past 8 years, perhaps you could begin by summarizing your current strategy and projections," Warren suggested. Marcus launched into a polished presentation, emphasizing stability-proven approaches and the depth of Westbrook's experience. His projection slides showed anticipated returns of 4 to 4.5%, which he characterized as solid performance in uncertain markets. "We believe in sustainable growth rather than chasing aggressive returns that might expose your assets to unacceptable risk," Marcus concluded. "Our approach has delivered consistent results throughout our relationship." Warren nodded thoughtfully before turning his attention to our team. "Damon, I would be interested in hearing Pinnacle's perspective." Damon began with a brief overview of Pinnacle's philosophy before turning to me. "I would like to invite Amina Wallace, our senior portfolio strategist, to present our proposed approach for your portfolio." As I stood to take control of the presentation, I caught Marcus's expression hardening into a mask of professional neutrality that could not quite hide his discomfort. This was the moment everything had been leading towards since that dismissive laugh months earlier. "Thank you, Damon," I began, my voice steady and confident. "Mr. Kensington, based on our analysis of market conditions and the general structure of your current portfolio, which we understand from publicly available information, we believe there is significant opportunity for enhanced performance while maintaining a risk profile consistent with your established preferences." For the next 15 minutes, I presented a strategy remarkably similar to what I had proposed at Westbrook, though refined based on current market conditions and enhanced by the collaborative input of my Pinnacle team. The presentation was methodical data, driven and focused on specific tactical recommendations rather than general principles. In summary, I concluded our approach projects, an 8% increase in annual returns above current performance, achieved not through increased risk exposure, but through strategic reallocation and more responsive management of emerging opportunities. As I finished, I noticed Warren leaning forward with evident interest. Marcus, meanwhile, had lost his neutral expression, replacing it with a thinly veiled combination of disbelief and annoyance. 8% is a very ambitious projection, Warren noted. What gives you confidence in this number? The projection is supported by both theoretical models and actual performance, I replied. We have implemented similar strategies with comparable portfolios, most notably for Maxwell Turner, whose portfolio shares several characteristics with yours. And the results with Turner's portfolio, we are currently tracking at 4.8% improvement for the first quarter, which puts us on pace to exceed our annual projection. Warren's eyebrows rose appreciatively. Impressive. Marcus, your thoughts on Pinnacle's approach? Marcus cleared his throat, his discomfort now plainly visible. While the presentation is certainly thorough, I would caution against over-optimistic projections. 8% improvement, while supposedly maintaining the risk profile, strains credibility. These models often fail to account for real-world variables. It was almost word for word what he had said to me in the Westbrook strategy meeting, but this time I was positioned to respond. Actually, I countered our models incorporate stress testing against 3 major market downturns and simulate 27 distinct disruptive scenarios. We have found that adaptive reallocation within defined parameters actually reduces vulnerability to systemic shocks compared to more static approaches. Warren looked between the 2 video feeds, clearly noting the tension. It seems we have 2 very different perspectives here. Marcus favors stability and established methods, while Pinnacle, and specifically Wallace, advocates for a more adaptive approach with higher projected returns. What followed was nearly an hour of detailed questions as Warren probed both strategies, challenging assumptions, and requesting clarification on specific elements. Throughout, the contrast in approaches became increasingly stark. Marcus emphasized tradition and caution. Our team focused on innovation and results. As the meeting approached its conclusion, Warren sat back in his chair, fingers steepled before him. "Thank you all for your time and expertise," he said. "This has been most illuminating. I had expected to take some time to consider my decision, but I find myself with sufficient clarity to proceed immediately." A moment of expectant silence filled all 3 conference rooms. "Damon, Amina, I would like to move forward with Pinnacle as the manager for my entire portfolio, implementing the strategy Miss Wallace has outlined today." The words hung in the air for a moment before their impact fully registered. On the Westbrook video feed, Marcus's face froze in an expression of stunned disbelief. Robert looked down at the table, avoiding eye contact with anyone. "We are honored by your confidence," Warren Damon replied smoothly. "We will begin preparing the necessary documentation immediately." "Excellent. I will have my team initiate the transfer process. Marcus, I want to thank you and Westbrook for your management over the past years. Your stewardship during the early growth phase of my portfolio was appropriate for that time." Marcus struggled to maintain his professional composure. "Warren, I would strongly urge you to reconsider, or at minimum, to transition only a portion of your assets initially to test Pinnacle's approach before making such a significant move." Warren's expression remained pleasant but firm. "My decision is made, Marcus." The contrast in forward thinking could not be clearer to me. Sometimes fresh perspectives are necessary for new growth phases. With that, the meeting concluded. As the video connections terminated, our conference room erupted in congratulations. Damon shook my hand firmly. "Spectacular work, Amina. This is a game-changing acquisition for Pinnacle." While the team celebrated around me, I experienced a complex mixture of emotions. Professional vindication, certainly. Satisfaction at Marcus's shocked expression, absolutely. but most of all, confirmation that my judgment had been sound all along, both in my investment strategy and in my decision to leave an environment that could not recognize my value. The $350 million portfolio that Marcus had guarded so jealously was now under my management. The strategy he had dismissed with a laugh would now be implemented in full, and the professional respect I had sought at Westbrook had been found in abundance at Pinnacle. As we left the conference room to begin the work of transitioning Warren's portfolio, Damon pulled me aside. "You know, I have to confess something," he said with a slight smile. "When you first mentioned the 8% projection during our coffee meeting, I was skeptical too, but I was willing to listen to your reasoning, which is something Marcus clearly never did." "That willingness to listen made all the difference," I replied. "Thank you for giving me the opportunity to prove the value of my approach." "The opportunity was earned, not given," Damon corrected. "Never forget that." And as we walked toward my new office, where I would begin the work of restructuring Warren Kensington's $350 million portfolio, according to the very strategy Marcus had laughed at, I knew that this was more than a professional victory. It was validation of a principle I would carry forward throughout my career. True value will find its recognition, even if that requires changing the environment in which you seek it. The weeks following Warren Kensington's decision were a whirlwind of activity. Transitioning a $350 million portfolio requires meticulous attention to detail, careful timing of asset movements, and clear communication with all parties involved. My team and I worked long hours to ensure the process proceeded smoothly with minimal disruption to Warren's positions. Throughout this intense period, news from Westbrook reached me through industry channels and former colleagues. The loss of the Kensington account had sent shockwaves through the firm. As one of their flagship clients, Warren's departure raised questions about Westbrook's approach and Marcus's leadership specifically. The most significant update came from Robert, who reached out via email approximately 3 weeks after the video conference. "Wanted to let you know that there have been some changes here following the Kensington situation," he wrote. "Marcus has been reassigned from his CFO position to head of legacy accounts, effectively a demotion, though they are calling it a strategic realignment. The board is initiating a review of our investment approaches, particularly for larger portfolios. Your influence continues to be felt here, though few would admit it openly." I read his message with complex emotions. There was a certain satisfaction in knowing that Marcus's dismissive attitude had finally had consequences, but I took no joy in anyone's professional setbacks. What mattered more was that Westbrook might now be more open to innovation and fresh perspectives, potentially creating better opportunities for those still there. My response to Robert was professional and forward-looking. "Thank you for the update. I hope the review leads to positive changes for the firm and its clients. Change can be difficult but often necessary for growth." Meanwhile, at Pinnacle, the implementation of my strategy for the Kensington portfolio was proceeding exactly as planned. The first quarterly performance under our management showed a 6.2% improvement, exceeding even my projections for that time frame. Warren was notably pleased, sending a personal note of appreciation for our approach and results. My success with the Kensington account accelerated my position within Pinnacle. Damon expanded my team further and increased my portfolio responsibility to include several other major accounts. 6 months into my tenure, I was promoted to partner with equity in the firm and a seat on the executive committee. Perhaps the most personally satisfying development came when Jessica called to schedule lunch approximately 2 months after the Kensington transfer. We met at a restaurant halfway between our respective offices. She looked different somehow, more confident, less constrained. "I have news," she announced once we had ordered. "I have resigned from Westbrook." "Really? Where are you going?" I asked, though I had a suspicion. "Pinnacle has offered me a position as a senior portfolio manager," she revealed with a smile. "Apparently someone recommended me quite strongly." "I may have mentioned your name to Damon," I acknowledged, "but the offer is based entirely on your qualifications and track record." "Well, thank you for opening the door. Westbrook has become even more dysfunctional since you left. The Kensington loss triggered a wave of client reviews, and several other major accounts are considering their options." "And Marcus?" A shadow of his former self. The demotion has taken its toll on his influence. He still maintains that your strategy was too aggressive, but no one is really listening anymore. Jessica joined Pinnacle the following month, and together, we began to reshape the culture of investment strategy at the firm, mentoring younger analysts and creating pathways for diverse talent to advance based on performance rather than politics. Robert reached out again nearly a year after my departure from Westbrook. His message was more personal than professional. "I owe you an apology," he wrote. "I should have supported your proposal in that meeting. I recognized its merit but lacked the courage to challenge Marcus. The events since then have made me reconsider my own approach to leadership and advocacy. I wanted you to know that your brief time here had a lasting impact not just on our investment strategies, which have indeed evolved, but on how I view my responsibilities to my team and colleagues." His message touched me more deeply than I had expected. It represented a different kind of validation, one focused on the human element of professional relationships rather than just the analytical correctness of my investment approach. "Thank you for this message, Robert," I replied. "Recognition comes in many forms and at different times. I appreciate your reflection and wish you success in your evolving approach to leadership." As the months became a year, and then two, my position at Pinnacle continued to strengthen. The Kensington portfolio consistently outperformed its Westbrook benchmarks, eventually achieving the full 8% improvement I had originally projected. Other portfolios under my management showed similar results, establishing my approach as a new standard within the firm. More importantly, I found myself healing from the professional wounds inflicted during my time at Westbrook. The initial pain of dismissal and disrespect transformed into appreciation for the redirection it had provided. What had seemed like professional humiliation became the catalyst for unprecedented growth. I began to speak at industry conferences about adaptive portfolio management, often addressing the cultural and organizational barriers to innovation in financial services. My perspective as a woman who had navigated both traditional and progressive environments gave these presentations particular relevance for many attendees. I also became intentional about mentoring younger female analysts who faced similar challenges to those I had encountered. Creating pathways for diverse talent became as important to me as financial performance, recognizing that true innovation requires multiple perspectives and experiences. One particularly promising analyst, Zara, reminded me of myself 5 years earlier, brilliant but running into institutional resistance to her ideas. "They keep telling me to be patient," she confided during one of our mentoring sessions, "but I feel like that is just code for stop pushing for change." "Patience has its place," I advised her, "but so does knowing your worth. Sometimes the right move is to keep advocating within your current environment. Other times the right move is to find an environment that recognizes your value from the start. How do you know which is which? Ask yourself whether the resistance is about refining your ideas to make them stronger or simply about maintaining established patterns regardless of merit. The former is worth your patience. The latter rarely changes without external pressure. Through these mentoring relationships, I found myself processing my own experience in new ways, extracting deeper lessons that went beyond my specific situation with Marcus and Westbrook. The most profound of these lessons was about self-valuation. Marcus's dismissive laugh had temporarily shaken my confidence, making me question my analysis and approach. But the problem had never been with my work. It had been with an environment that was structured to resist certain voices and perspectives, regardless of their merit. Learning to separate the value of my contributions from others' ability to recognize that value became a cornerstone of my professional identity. It allowed me to move through spaces with a confidence that was grounded not in external validation, but in a clear understanding of my capabilities and worth. Equally important was the recognition that rejection often functions as redirection. Had Marcus embraced my strategy proposal, I might have remained at Westbrook indefinitely, advancing incrementally within a system that fundamentally undervalued innovative thinking. His dismissal, painful as it was in the moment, redirected me to an environment where my approach could flourish and my career could accelerate. Perhaps most significantly, I learned that the most effective response to disrespect is not anger or retaliation, but excellence elsewhere. I had not succeeded at Pinnacle to prove Marcus wrong, though that had certainly been a motivating factor initially. I had succeeded because my approach was sound, my analysis was thorough, and my new environment recognized and amplified those strengths. 3 years after leaving Westbrook, I received an Industry Leadership Award for Innovation in Portfolio Management. As I stood at the podium looking out at a room filled with colleagues, competitors, and mentees, I thought about the journey that had led to this moment. True innovation in finance is not just about new analytical tools or investment vehicles, I said in my acceptance speech. It is about creating environments where diverse perspectives are not merely tolerated, but actively sought out and incorporated. The best financial strategies emerge when we combine rigorous analysis with the full range of human experience and perspective. From my vantage point, I could see Jessica in the audience now, a partner at Pinnacle herself. Several of my mentees were present, building their own paths in the industry. Even Robert was there, having finally left Westbrook to head a smaller firm committed to more progressive approaches. Marcus was not in attendance, though I had heard he had taken early retirement the previous year following Westbrook's acquisition by a larger financial institution that had implemented sweeping changes to their investment approach. As I concluded my speech and returned to my table, I reflected on how differently events might have unfolded had Marcus simply listened during that quarterly strategy meeting. A laugh and a dismissal had altered the course of both our careers, though in dramatically different ways. The path forward continues to unfold before me, shaped by the lessons of that pivotal moment, but no longer defined by it. Each day brings new challenges, new opportunities to apply both analytical rigor and emotional intelligence to the complex world of investment strategy. And sometimes in quiet moments, I still hear that dismissive laugh echoing from the past. But now it sounds different to me, less like mockery, and more like the unintended starting bell for the most rewarding phase of my professional journey. Have you ever had someone dismiss your ideas only to later realize your true worth? I would love to hear your stories of professional redemption in the comments below. And if you found value in my journey from rejection to recognition, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share with others who might need this reminder. Sometimes, the best response to being underestimated is to simply prove your worth elsewhere on your own terms. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and remember that your value does not diminish just because someone fails to see it.